I'm sitting here, I was going to say I'm pouring over my resin. I poured my resin. Now I'm watching over my resin. This is a guitar that I just made. I have a guitar pick pressed into the resin over here at just the right pressure and just the right time to where the resin comes out through the hole. It's a star pick. And drumsticks. And I'm trying to keep any dust out of the air or any hair that might get into the resin. And I'm trying to keep it from bubbling up. So every minute or so, I have to come through and pop all the bubbles that have formed. And if you don't do this, and if you miss doing this, then you will end up with air bubbles. Now, it's nothing uncommon with resin to have air bubbles. I mean, it's very common. And there's multiple ways to deal with this. There's three ways, really. You either use a torch and go over it every so often, or you use a heat gun like I use. Or the third option is to use a vacuum chamber or some sort of a vacuum system where you put it into a chamber which literally pulls the air out. And the reason why you get air bubbles in resin is because when you pour it, there's air bubbles in the resin, of course. But you can use a heat gun if it's thin enough and get that out pretty quick. It's different if you're pouring it over a surface, such as I am right here, a bunch of kids' blocks from school. Now, all of these are glued on, and then I ran wood glue over it with a watered down glue version, filled every crack, completely loaded it up, tried to get every single bit covered with glue, but there's still going to be some spots where air bubbles will start to form. The funny thing about pouring resin is that when you first pour it, it looks beautiful and it's crystal clear, and then within like 5-10 minutes it starts bubbling up really bad, and then you heat it up, and the more you heat it up, of course, the thinner it gets, and then the more air bubbles form, and it's just this continuous chasing the dragon trying to get this shit done, make sure that it's done right. I mean, if I was just pouring a couple of rings or beads or something, I wouldn't really care that much. But the fact is, this is going to be a damn guitar. Oh, see, I missed a spot right here. It looks like the resin. Oh, I see. I just need to push the tape in. So I'm using duct tape on the edge of this because it's... I tried to use blue tape, but I couldn't find it, and I'm actually glad I didn't. The blue tape I did find was really sketchy. And the thing about pouring resin, another important thing is, obviously, this guitar blank has a border on it of duct tape that's about 2 millimeters high. If you didn't have that, it would just run off the edges, and that would be horrible. And so once I put that tape rim on, I run my fingernails around at like 3 different layers on the tape and push it into the wood. I mean, you do not want this resin leaking. The warmer that you pour it, the more problems you're going to have. And, I've watched a lot of shows about pouring resin, but as far as getting advice on how to do it proper, it's very difficult because it depends on several factors. One being, first off, what are you pouring it on? First thing, I guess, would be, what type of resin are you pouring? The second thing would be, what surface are you pouring it on? Third, what temperature is the surface you're pouring it on? Fourth would be, what temperature is the resin that you're pouring? Fifth, how long has it sat around? Sixth, how long has it been mixed? And has it been mixed properly? Everything, all these different factors. The more porous an item is, the more bubbles that are going to form. So here, I just toasted it down and I've got another 100 bubbles. So I just feel like I'm going to have to keep doing this forever. But the thing is, I have to, because if I don't, I'm going to have a guitar that looks like shit. I mean, it already looks pretty cool, of course, but any air bubbles in there will ruin the full effect. And I suppose I could probably sand some of them out. It's difficult to know whether I should wait or whether I should maybe tap it and maybe that resonation in the wood will kind of pull more of the air bubbles out. And I don't even know how well you can see it from there, but it's just a process. It teaches me patience. I like learning patience. For those who don't know, I have a school bus, and my school bus's name is Patience because she taught me how to be patient because she's so slow, unbelievably slow. There's something in here that's not supposed to be here. Where is it? There it is. Sometimes you'll find foreign invaders, like hairs, and you've just got to lift them out manually. You do not want hair or fuzz or anything like that. I mean, ideally I would be doing this in a clean room, but I don't have a fucking clean room. Hell no. We're getting closer. There's only so much of this you can do. At some point it kind of hits a wall and it really starts hardening quickly. Really only takes maybe half an hour, 45 minutes to where it really starts to harden. But what's that? I really hate doing this though because it's just a big pain in the butt. Like I said, it's kind of a feedback loop. The more that you hit it with the heat gun, the warmer it gets, and the thinner it gets, and the more bubbles get pulled out of it. Resin is, but it's a hell of a thing. You know, I heard somebody say the other day they don't like resin because it feels wasteful. It feels destructive, like they're wasting environmental resources because it's plastic, and I can get that, but at the same time there's part of me that says, you know, it's worth it for art. It's always worth it for art. I think about the small amount of plastic that goes into making this. Oh, here we go. Now it's starting to get to that stage I was talking about. As it gets thicker, the bubbles have a harder time popping, but also less bubbles will form. So we're just going to have to be patient. I'm not patient. Now we're getting somewhere. I don't know how thick it is. It's very hard to see how thick it is in different spots. To wonder if you should tilt the guitar one way or another. But I think it's pretty consistent. I've seen a lot of resin guitars, but I haven't seen a lot of resin guitars poured over. Really haven't seen any resin guitars poured as a finish over a guitar. I usually see it as an inclusion or a couple pieces of wood put together with something in the middle. Boy, this thing is really bubbling up now, but we're getting closer to the end, so let's just hope for the best. At any rate, let's see if we can get up closer here. See what I'm saying? All them bubbles. a matter of patience. That's what they say.